Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Young Men Podcast. My name is Josh Richardson. I'm your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Connor Stiles, and our dear friend, Emma. And my mom was telling me the other day, Josh, why are you calling it the Young Men Podcast if this is a podcast for all young adults? And I thought that was a good point, but I had already completed all of the branding for the podcast and was not able to reverse it. Plus, the young adult podcast sounded a little bit sketchy to me. So the reason why we called it the Young Men Podcast was because the idea was founded around our group of roommates, guys, that we had lived years together. And so we thought it would be fun to kind of build a podcast around conversations that we had while we were roommates. But the topics that we're talking about are relevant to everybody our age. So we're hoping that we can reach a larger audience. And that's why we have Emma here today. And our topic today is a discussion trying to understand the differences in the way that men and women think about romantic relationships. So to start us out, I wanted to do some opening statements on the attributes of an ideal partner. And this is a question that we haven't heard each other's answers to. So I'm curious to see what everyone else says. Connor, do you want to start? And then Emma, you can follow up after Connor, and then I'll go ahead and share.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of sum up what an ideal partner is for me. But some things that I think an ideal partner for me would be just a great ability to communicate, a willingness to communicate, hopefully some shared interests, just so we have something initially to kind of base a relationship on, but really just someone that is willing to put in the same amount of effort that I am and really put everything into a relationship, and that's just open to grow, not expecting perfection, but just want someone that it just feels natural to be around, just kind of like a natural friend that grows into something more.
Very nice opening statement.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Also, honored to be here, honored to be representing the young women on the Young Men Podcast. But yeah, what I look for in an ideal partner, I think some of the core things that are non-negotiable for me are just that he's a kind person. How he treats other people is really important to me. I want him to be able to be someone that I can see being a really good husband and father. That's something that I'm really looking forward to, is having a family and building that with somebody that I love. I was very lucky to have parents who set a really good example to me of both what a marriage should look like and what parenting should look like. So I don't want my kids to ever doubt that their parents love each other, that they love them. So that's something that's important to me. I think I love what Connor said about putting in effort and having that equal amounts of effort and laying everything on the line in a relationship. I think that that's really important to me, is just somebody who's trying his best in whatever he's doing. So putting in effort to that relationship, putting in effort to draw closer to God and to become a better person, and then just, whatever else he's pursuing. So I think those are some of the core things that I look for in a person.
Also a very good opening statement. Thank you, Emma. I think I highlighted some things that are similar to what you guys said. My first bullet point was actually understanding and empathy, and I hope I can explain this in the right way, but I really want someone, and I guess this kind of ties into what you said, Connor, about someone who's a natural friend, who's easy to be around, but I'm really looking for someone who has kind of understands life's hardships and has compassion and kindness towards other people. And we're going to talk a little bit about this in a later question, but someone who knows that life has its challenges and is okay with that and loves me in spite of those things, and who I can love and support her as she's going through her own challenges. I think compassion and kindness is definitely top priority for me in an ideal partner. I also put humor. I also put relationship with God, and specifically with religion and relationship with God. I think it's important to view religion the same way as well. I think for me, to be able to approach relationship with God in the same way is important. But those are some of the things that I highlighted.
Wow, I feel like my answer was lacking in a lot of different ways after hearing your guys' answers. I think mine would ideally encompass all the things you both said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
none
I
of
think
those
all of our
qualities are ones that I don't want in a partner. Like, could do without the empathy. But,
it is interesting as you guys were sharing your answers as well. I was like, it sounds like the things that we're looking for have to do with personal experiences we've had in our lives recently, maybe things that have been lacking or things that haven't been there in past relationships. And so those are at the forefront of our minds, things that are especially important to us moving forward in forthcoming relationships. I'll speak for myself when I said understanding and empathy. Obviously, that comes from a place of having been around women or in relationships where there wasn't that. And so that has become really important for me. So maybe our answers also shift with time, depending on the circumstances we're going through. So
yeah,
labeling
oh,
oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
One thing I thought of when you were talking about and looking for somebody who kind of loves you in spite of some of the challenges that you have, I think that's something that, one, with what you were just saying, you learn so much as you go through these challenges, and the things that you look for after dating someone change. There's things that, you say, okay, I loved this about this person. This person did this really well and is a quality I want, but here's some things that were lacking. But I think that when you really care about somebody, whether a romantic relationship or a friendship or a family member, you don't just love somebody in spite of their challenges, but because of them, because those challenges make them who they are and shape how they come into these relationships and how they treat other people around them.
You're totally right. Like when I see someone that I care about, or like they open up about challenges that they've been through, and I just realize what they've been dealing with, and then they're still able to be the person that they are, my respect and love for that person just goes so much higher than it would for someone who, wasn't open about those things or hadn't really had really challenging things in life. So I agree with that. Let's dive into these questions, you guys, because we have a lot to talk about. We've created questions for each other. And because this is a podcast about trying to understand the different ways that men and women think about relationships, Emma's created a set of questions for Connor and I to try and answer. Connor and I have created some questions for Emma to try and answer. And essentially we're bearing the weight of our entire sex on our own shoulders and answering these questions. So we do want to put that qualifier out. We really aren't qualified to answer these questions, and our answers are not going to be reflective of everyone our age. Again, they have to do with particular experiences that we've had in our lives and obviously our individual personalities. So questions and answers will be different depending on the person, but maybe some of these questions will be relevant to some people who are listening. So Emma, take us away on the first question.
Yeah, and thank you for that qualifier, because I do think we're about to paint with some kind of broad strokes, particularly about men and women, and I think there's obviously always exceptions, and these are just things that we've noticed in our limited perspectives and the limited sample size that we have with us three and the people around us. So that being said, I will be speaking for all women everywhere, and my word is gospel, so probably take this super seriously and know that there's no variation. We have a hive mind, and everyone shares my opinions. Okay, so to start off, I wanted to talk a little bit about love languages, and you don't have to stick necessarily to kind of those 5 that are listed with the love languages, but how do you show people that you care about them? What are the most meaningful ways somebody can show you that they care about you? And then how do you feel like these tend to differ between men and women?
Connor, do you want to start us out on that question?
Yeah, so there's different parts of that question. One way that I show people I care about them is by giving them my time. My time is sometimes limited, sometimes I have more time, but I show people I care about them by giving them my time and my attention, and planning to do stuff with them. So, I mean, and I like to do things for them. So I guess, yeah, just quality time is a way that I show people I care for them. And let's see, some meaningful ways someone can show they care about me is also kind of the same thing as if they put in an effort to spend time with me, and if it feels like they're trying to reciprocate. In relationships, I really like doing things with and for the person I'm in a relationship with. So, and if that's not really reciprocated, then I usually don't feel that cared about. So that's a great way that they can also show that they care about me. And then I don't know that those really differ that much between men and women. I would think that, and Emma, you're here, so you can correct me if I'm off base with this, but I mean, I think everyone wants to feel important in a relationship. They want to feel like the other person cares at least as much as they do. And when you're both putting in time, I feel like when there's that balance, it just makes a relationship feel like it's going a lot smoother, like there's a lot more potential. And so I don't know that there'd be a big difference between how men and women feel about that.
Can confirm women do like to feel important. So you heard it here first. But no, I love that you said that, and that's something I've talked to friends a lot about, is kind of just that idea of reciprocation. And even if people show that they care in slightly different ways, or kind of feel that other people care about them through different means, that idea of putting in equal amounts of time and effort and feeling that the other person is as invested in the relationship as you are is something that's really important.
Do you think that just comes naturally when you find a person that you click really well with, that, or is that something you have to continue to like make effort, a substantial amount of effort for?
I do think that personally, I view love and relationships as something that you have to choose and that you have to put in effort to. I think there are people that you can naturally get along with and enjoy time with. And I do think that for me personally, when I really like somebody, I naturally find ways that I can try to make them happier, that I can show them that I care about them. They just tend to be on my mind more. And so me finding kind of thoughtful ways that I can show them that, I feel like does come more naturally when I care about somebody. But I also do think that it has to be something that is a priority for you and that you are putting effort into. So I would say a little bit of both, if you'll take a cop-out answer.
No, I agree with that. I do find that it is, when you really love somebody, it is easier to want to do things for them. So, just to answer the questions that you gave, Emma, a lot of mine are the same as Connor's. One thing that I added, though, was I think it's important when showing that I care about someone that I try and understand them. I also love hugs. I like giving hugs to people. So lots of hugs, and then expressing gratitude for them. And then, yeah, I think just being understood is the biggest thing, honestly. And yeah, I think there's no better feeling in the world than knowing that someone knows who you are, respects who you are, and loves who you are. And you feel like you can be honest, open, vulnerable with them, and you're just accepted as who you are. And I like to be validated on the things that I'm doing well, and I hope that I would be able to do that for someone else. In terms of difference between men and women, maybe women are just, again, broad brushstrokes here, but maybe women are better at offering support and listening, and they do it more often than men. Men are just not as open. I don't know. So maybe we have a hard time opening up, and maybe there's less validation for things that we're going through. And maybe less vocalized support. But I do think when men get to that point, it is very sincere because they don't do it very often. It's, you know, that it's coming from their heart because they're making that uncomfortable effort to do it. So,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, two quick thoughts on that. I think first, what you're saying about feeling known and understood. And I think on that deeper level that you were talking about, kind of being known and understood for what you're going through and emotions is important. But for me also, I feel really cared about when people just have paid attention to little things about me, when I feel like they know me and remember little things about me. So if kind of the acts of service they do are thoughtful in the ways that they've paid attention to, you know, maybe I had a group of guy friends who gave me a birthday present once that was a bread pan full of Snickers bars. And the bread pan was like an inside joke that we had made from a couple of months before. And then Snickers are my favorite candy bar. And it was, you know, not wrapped super nicely. It was just this literally a bread pan with a couple of Snickers bars in the bottom. But to me, that was really meaningful for me because it was something where I felt cared about, that they had this inside joke with me that they remembered and thought was fun, and that they knew something about me that I liked and went out of their way to get that. So I loved that. And then also I do think that men opening up about emotions, I do find that sometimes that seems a little bit harder for men to do, but I do really appreciate it when they do that. And I do think that that's something that's changed a little bit culturally, even over the past few years and throughout my lifetime, is I do feel like there's more of a change in attitudes towards men opening up. I feel like maybe in previous kind of cultural societal trends, men were more encouraged to kind of bottle that up and just, you know, repress. But I feel like now it's a little bit more open for men to be a little bit more vulnerable, which I think is a really positive change.
this is a perfect transition into the next question. My question for you, Emma. I've heard a lot of women value a man who is in tune with their emotions, exactly what we were talking about. But how emotionally sensitive do you actually want the guy to be? And follow-up question, why do so many women still go for toxic men with the emotional range of a teaspoon? There's zero bitterness in that question.
None. No.
None at all.
No accusations being thrown. No.
No.
I'm happy to answer it. So first of all, I think that sometimes what women mean when they're saying that they want somebody who's emotionally sensitive or in tune with their emotions gets misconstrued a little bit as meaning that they want a guy who, you know, cries a lot or loves the movie The Notebook or is really romantic or mushy-gushy. And I think these things can or can not be true about guys. I don't really have a preference on those, but I think what they really mean, what women really mean when we're looking for somebody who's emotional or sensitive, is that we want somebody who's emotionally mature. And what that means to me is kind of two parts. I think, first of all, that you are recognizing and able to deal with your own emotions and be able to express those. And then second of all, that you're able to kind of understand and anticipate and then react to other people's emotions. So in that last part of your question, you reference Harry Potter, right? A classic Hermione line where she tells Ron that he has the emotional range of a teaspoon. And if we just dive into this a little bit, if we look at Harry Potter, in this fifth book, if we're looking at the first half of what I just said, as far as being able to recognize and express your emotions, in this book, Harry Potter has just witnessed some real trauma. His friend just got murdered in front of him, right? He's like lost all his family. There's a dark wizard out to kill him. There's a lot going on. Very understandable and valid emotions and trauma that he's going through. But throughout this entire book, we see him, he's pushing people away. His friends are trying to help him out. And he's like, no, I can do everything by myself. And I think on the one hand, emotional maturity in this case, it could be crying and opening up to Hermione and just being like, it's really hard and being vulnerable. It could also be saying, hey, I'm going through a lot. I need some time alone to process this, but I appreciate you being there for me. I appreciate you checking in on me. So I don't think it necessarily means that you have to be emotional and that you're always talking about your feelings or you're always showing them through certain ways, but being able to express how you're feeling, I think is kind of that hallmark of emotional sensitivity and maturity. Second half of that equation, if we're looking, we're really just going to lean hard into this Harry Potter analogy right now. But if we're looking at the scene that Hermione's talking about when she insults Ron's emotional range, Harry has just kissed Cho Chang. Cho starts crying, and Harry's just kind of like, I don't know, she started crying, it was a little weird. And Hermione's like, no, hold on. And all the readers have the same information that Cho, Hermione, Harry, and Ron all have. They all have the same context clues. Cho was dating Cedric. Cedric gets murdered brutally. Harry was there for it. And then it was all pretty recent. Cho's interested in Harry now. And then Harry and Cho kiss, and Hermione's able to put together these context clues of, okay, Cho's probably crying because her boyfriend was recently killed. She's still grieving over that. She probably feels a little bit guilty about moving on. She's probably feeling a little confused. Harry and Ron have the same emotional context for the situation, right? And they're like, I don't know, like, that's weird that she was crying, dude. Like, I just kind of made out with her and then left. And so I think emotional maturity in this case scenario is just kind of like recognizing other people's emotions and then being able to kind of react to those and be able to express those and talk to other people about them as well. As far as why women go for men who have the emotional range of a teaspoon, main reason I would say is a supply problem. If you happen to know any tablespoon range men, if you want to send them my way, happy to date them, would love to. I think also, like, you just don't know, right, until you're dating somebody. I think it takes seeing each other through challenges and seeing how they react to people to kind of know where they're at with that. And so, and you see a different side of people too when you're dating someone than maybe what their guy friends or other people are seeing. So I don't have a great answer for you on why not, but those are kind of my thoughts on what women maybe mean when they're looking for an emotionally sensitive man.
So if I understand this correctly, an
Mm-hmm.
emotionally sensitive man, what you guys are looking for, or you are looking for an emotionally sensitive man, Emma, is
Me.
just someone who is just emotionally intelligent. Like they understand other people's emotions and their own and
Yep.
are able to deal with them, understand them, deal with them.
That'll
That
do
doesn't
it.
mean that people are necessarily like, just to make sure I'm understanding this, doesn't mean that men are perfect in all of their emotions and they have everything exactly figured out. It just means that they are aware and able to try and deal with them.
Exactly. Nobody has all their emotions figured out. Women definitely don't. But I think, it's just being able to talk about them or express what you need in those situations, even if what you need is to not talk about it, to be able to be like, hey, I recognize that you're worried about me and I really appreciate that. I just need some time to think this through before I can talk about it. That's very emotionally mature and that's totally fine. I think just expressing those feelings and those needs and then being able to recognize the feelings and needs of other people is something that's really powerful and that can really strengthen a relationship.
This emotional intelligence that you were speaking of takes time and practice. I think there are some things that come naturally to people, but I think it takes effort and experience through relationships to develop a lot of those characteristics and attributes. Personally, when I was listening to you describe a man who's emotionally intelligent, I'm like, yeah, I still have some work to do on a lot of those things. It's going to take some time, but I do love that you use Hermione as the gold standard for emotional intelligence. She really is amazing.
Always.
She is, yeah, she's
Always
awesome.
trying to be Hermione. Yeah, no, agreed.
Connor,
I
do you have
think
any other thoughts? Go ahead,
Oh,
Emma.
I was just gonna say sorry about that. I think that everybody has work to do on that, and I think that different parts of that might come easier to people. I would say, and again, painting with some broad strokes, I would say a lot of the women in my life I think are really good at recognizing other people's feelings and thinking about how other people are feeling and reaching out because of that or acting accordingly. And then I would say, me personally at least, and then as well as some of the close friends I have that are women, I think have a harder time kind of expressing sometimes how we feel. And I think that's something I'll talk about a little bit later, but kind of this expectation that we're always thinking about other people's feelings, so we don't understand when other people maybe aren't anticipating our own. So I think that all
Hmm.
of it takes work and everybody has to work on it. And I also think it differs just with communication styles and different personalities as well.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Connor, do you have any thoughts based off Emma's answer to that question?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and something that probably most guys can work on. And it really, I mean, that's a thing for everyone. Emotional intelligence is a huge thing that, if you have it or if you work on it, it can make a big difference in all your relationships, not just romantic ones.
Agreed. Okay, Emma, you're up. Next question.
Okay, this is another topic that I've talked about with girlfriends a lot, and something, a mystery you guys can solve for me about the male psyche. How long does it take you guys to decide that you're interested in somebody? And then does that initial interest or attraction change over time? Or is it typically, if you're not interested at first, you never will be?
I will take a swing at this one first, Connor, and then you can answer because your answer might be better than mine. Um, okay, so for me, there is initial interest around people that I've just met that are kind of mysterious or interesting or um, who come into my life and I'm like, oh, I don't really know that much about you. So there's like the mystery interest of like, ooh, here's this new person that I would like to get to know better. But that interest changes pretty quickly when you get to know them. You can tell pretty quickly if they're going to be someone who's compatible with you or not. And if they are someone that you click with, that you get along with, then interest just deepens from there. I would say in my case, um, interest doesn't just appear later down the road. I think there is initial interest, and then once you get to know that person, then the interest deepens. That's just my answer. I don't know.
I would agree
Connor.
with that. I feel like there's always kind of this intriguing aspect of new possibilities. And so it might have like kind of a spike of interest just right when meeting someone new, but after spending a little bit of time, they'll either deepen or kind of drop off. But I would say for the most part, uh, there's usually, I would agree with Josh, where interest doesn't typically just spring up later down the road. It's, for me, it's usually there's already interest there. And then as I get to know the person, then I become more interested because you kind of uncover different things and you'll see either that it aligns with what you're looking for or it doesn't really. So the more that I discover a person aligns with who I envision myself with, the more excited I get, the more I put into it. But there's always at least a base level of interest.
But this brings up an interesting point, though, because there are like Hollywood tropes about people who were friends for a long time and they didn't realize that they loved each other, but then all of a sudden they do, and the interest is there. Like I've seen a lot of Hallmark movies like that. Can that happen for other people? I I haven't really experienced that myself, but Emma, I do want to hear your thoughts on this question as well.
Yeah, just based on personal experience, and then also, again, just talking to a few friends in prep for this podcast, since I'm just representing all of the women everywhere. But yeah, I think that women, I wouldn't say that interest like comes out of nowhere, but I do think that I've had experiences and I've talked to other people who have experiences where they've been friends with somebody who maybe they initially weren't super attracted to or like didn't have a strong romantic interest in, but as they got to know them better and learn new things about them, that interest did kind of come up. So I do think that's something where maybe there's a little bit of a difference there and that can happen maybe a little bit more often. But I do think the basics are the same. I think obviously when you first meet somebody, there's can be a kind of spark of interest there. And I do think as you get to know people, that interest either increases or fades. But yeah, I do think that the more you get to know someone, that can kind of crop up, even if you had initially kind of been like, not really my type or not somebody that I'd be interested in romantically.
Let's see, Connor, you're up for the next question.
Oh, my question. So one of my questions is, what is something that most women wish men understood better about them?
This is a good question, and one I had a few different ideas for, but kind of what I landed on is I think that women have a tendency to kind of overthink and overanalyze things. And I think that it comes from a place of like trying to care about other people's needs and their feelings, but I think it often gets a little bit misconstrued as women being really crazy or indecisive. And so I was going to bring up a typical example of something that I've heard men complain about women, just try to clear the air a little bit, but the classic ritual of deciding what restaurant to eat at. I know that there's some frustration among the male population that women can't pick a restaurant to eat at. And I just want to use this as a way to break down how the female brain works a little. So I assume when a guy asks a girl out, wants to pick a restaurant, his thought process, I would guess, goes something like this. It's like, oh, I don't know what food she likes. I'll ask her. My guess, taking a stab at the male thought process there. The female thought process when receiving such a text, such a query, would be to think through, first of all, she's going to go, okay, well, I don't know what kind of food he likes to eat. I don't know if he's going to pay. And if he is going to pay, I don't know what his price range is. So I don't want to suggest a restaurant that's, too nice, but I also don't want to like insult him and then suggest something that's super cheap. She's also going to wonder, she might overthink and think, okay, well, also, like, does him not picking a restaurant himself mean that he's just trying to cater to what I want? Or does it mean that he's not really invested in this? He's, like, not really wanting to take the time to plan this out? Like, we're going through a whole labyrinth of decisions right now, right? And a lot of them are coming from a place of, like, I want to make sure he's happy with where we end up, and I don't want to put him in a position where he's uncomfortable, right? So all from a very well-meaning place. This is just for the specific situation, but pro tip for you. I had a guy where whenever we went out, he would always give me 3 options of a place to eat, and that was great. I loved that, because then I know that he likes all of those restaurants, right? Like, we're in the clear. I know that he feels comfortable with the pay range for all of them. It shows that he put an effort to planning, but he's also trying to like cater to my interests. And then I get to have a say. I get to choose something that I enjoy, but I don't have to worry about all these like other little anxieties. So just to sum up, I feel like a lot of times women kind of get this bad rep for being a little crazy or overthinking or indecisive, but just recognize that it's probably coming from a place of them trying to make you happy. And I think if you break it down a little bit, usually it's just well-meaning. Just be a little patient, give them a couple options, and then we should be good.
That was really insightful.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. Also, that literally happens in your brain for every interaction with a guy.
Every day, every interaction I've ever had, I am coming at it from every possible angle. It is just chaos up in here, up in the old noggin. There's always so
That
much going on.
sounds like hell.
I don't love it.
Okay, but when does that does that thinking ever calm down? Like once you're established in a relationship, you're in a committed relationship, you know this guy, you've known him for a long time, you guys kind of know each other's interests and stuff like that. Does it come down a little bit?
From a personal perspective, first of all, I do think women in general tend to overthink things, overanalyze things. I would say I'm on an extreme side of that spectrum. So not sure I'm the best representation. Also, I've only been in one real relationship, so I'm only speaking from that. I would say it calms down a little bit. I think when you know somebody else's likes and things they don't like, then you feel less stressed of being, suggesting things or saying, oh, here's what I want to do because I know that this person already likes that and we've done it before. And so it's a little bit easier to not overthink some of those things. But I do think still there's other aspects too that you overthink more because you're in a relationship and again, you're just really trying to make that person happy and try to show them that you care about them and are catering to their likes and their needs.
This is interesting because I've had conversations with my parents who've been married for decades now, which is a feat in and of itself. But my mom and dad, my mom will always tell my dad, like, tell me what you are thinking. And after decades of being married, they still need to have that conversation. Like, tell me what your thought process is so that I can understand what you are thinking. And you would think after being married for that long, it would just come naturally. Like, I know exactly what you're thinking. Two peas in a pod, but still very different ways of thinking about things that they have to have open communication about.
Yeah. And I think bringing that up at the end, that open communication and something that Connor talked about at the very start is just how important that is to be able to communicate those things and recognizing that, hey, maybe men and women or just even personality wise in a relationship, like you and I think differently about this, but if we're able to talk about it, we can kind of understand where the other person's coming from.
This is a tangential question that's probably too big to answer here, but if men and women think so differently, I've talked to a lot of guys, this is way off topic, but I've talked to a lot of guys who are like, it's just so much easier to live with guys because we think the same way. But there are merits to tying yourself to someone who thinks differently about life, who sees things differently. That's what I'm told. Honestly, the differences in the way that we think is really intimidating because there's a lot to work through and it takes a lot of work. But do you guys see the benefits and merits? It's worth it.
Sometimes I've had that same conversation with roommates or with friends. Like, I'm gonna be honest, at least once or twice a week. I'm like, why? Why do men think the way they do? Like, why can't they just... And I think it, for both sides, right? Like, I think we both think that we're being logical and that the way that we're thinking about things makes sense. We're like, how do men not see this the way that I'm seeing this? And I'm sure men are having similar thoughts and conversations. But I do think that it helps you to grow, even just, I think, being forced to kind of work through those challenges of communication and being able to talk about it, I think really benefits you and helps you to grow and to be able to be a better communicator and somebody who has a lot more understanding and empathy. I also think from the merits of raising a family, having those different viewpoints and raising kids and then bringing different strengths and different ideas to the table, I think that that has a lot of benefits as well. But yeah, I hope that there's merits, and I hope that the overthinking thing calms down after a while. Be nice.
I do see oh, Connor, were you going to say something?
Nope, I was just laughing.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, especially with like having a family, I definitely see the benefits of having differences. So hopefully our differences in thinking drive us to growth, becoming better people instead of madness. And pain. Okay. Sorry. You could Anyways,
Got a lot of
I
single people coming into this with some real hurt and bitterness. Just trying to,
yeah,
yeah.
I try and be open as I can be.
Hmm.
Um, we're doing the best that we can. We're fine. Whoever's listening, please accept me and understand and love me. That's what my love language is. Okay. Um, Emma, ooh, this is a good question. I'm excited for this one.
Okay, I'm excited for the answers for this one. What are qualities in a partner or a relationship that are red flags or deal breakers for you?
I'll go first, Connor, and then you can take it. Leopard print, red flag,
Fair.
pink cars. Those are silly answers, but some real answers. Money habits is a big indicator to me. If someone is not mindful of their finances, that is a huge turnoff. Um, oh, this is another interest. This is just me. This is not all guys. This next one is just me. Huge. If the girl is like way into pop culture, celebrities, TikTok, that is a giant turnoff for me. Like I really want someone who is living their life in the present, who's grounded in their own reality, in their life, and I don't want someone who's totally invested in things that are happening to other people. I guess this kind of ties into like gossip is something that bothers me, like nasty gossip. I know it's good to like vent and talk about things that are happening to you day to day, but like really nasty gossip or just talking nonstop about other people, I don't love. And then the last red flag that I'll mention, I've already kind of talked about, but someone who has kind of floated through life without having really challenging things happening. I obviously don't wish challenging things upon people, but if they don't have the experience and maturity of having to go through challenging things, then I don't think we're going to be on the same page with the way that we see life. Those are my red flags. Connor?
I would agree with those. I can handle leopard print. I'm not as opposed to that. But the other things I definitely agree on. Finances is a big thing. I do not have a problem at all if a girl that I'm interested in comes from a really wealthy family. It's more like their perspective of it and their whether or not they have like this feeling of entitlement. If they come from a wealthy family but still understand like the value of money and of hard work and are willing to work hard, and then that's fine. It's more when they just kind of just have that air of entitlement that bothers me. Another thing is if they are kind of oblivious to people around them, that's a huge red flag to me. Like if they're mostly concerned with their needs, their wants, and that's all they really care about, even if it like is a huge inconvenience or problem for other people, then yeah, it's a big red flag. So I guess people that just aren't very aware or very down to earth, yeah, that's a no for me.
Okay, great. Those are interesting, and those are, I mean, no arguments against him. That being said, what do we think about Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn's breakup? Should we talk about it?
Don't, Emma. Don't even go there.
I am sad. I mean,
Me too!
I didn't like. I was not someone that really kept up on it, but all that I understood was that they had like a healthy relationship and they were both happy, and it wasn't like this public affair. Like it just made me happy to know that Taylor had someone that was good for her, that they lasted like 6 years or something. So I'm
Agreed.
sad about it.
I'm also sad about it. The new title of this podcast is just going to be Emma trying to trigger Josh for an hour straight. The first, you can cut this out, Josh, but the first time Josh and I hung out while we were studying, but we talked, you were on a real high of being a RM, but we talked about how I wanted to work part-time when I was a mother, how I wanted to do work from home. Josh starts quoting the family proclamation to me and is like, you should be fully focused on your children. You should be, and I'm like, okay, but we're still here. So,
Still friends.
This is great. I'm glad you
concerned about finances, you know, just whether or not she's willing to work ever. The answer should be no. But
okay, wow. I'm glad you're bringing this up. This is actually great because people change and grow, and growth is possible. Change is possible. It's a beautiful thing.
You force
I'm
your
happy
friends
with
to
who
watch
I
enough feminist UN speeches, and they come around.
I'm definitely cutting this out.
Oh, I know.
But moving on. Oh yes. Okay, this is my question. I don't know where this came from, but here we go. Emma, what do you think will be the most challenging thing about living with a man?
I've lived with men before. When I did my grad program in England, I had 4 male roommates, which was a big shift for me. I come from a family where I have 3 sisters and 1 brother, but he's 10 years younger than me, so that was a big shift. But I think that like the logistic type stuff of living with a man isn't something that I'm too nervous about. I think the biggest challenge is going to be having somebody who's a partner who you then have to make decisions with and share responsibilities with. Especially, I just think that the older I get, the more used to being independent I am, the more used to I am having things a certain way and doing things in my own style. And so I think that that's going to be a big adjustment, just changing that where all of a sudden you're sharing that with somebody else.
Yeah. And I think sharing a life with someone is really beautiful, but I have a brother and his wife who are really kind of exemplary for me. They're both very independent people, and they've been able to keep their independence while still merging their lives somehow, which I know is a struggle for a lot of couples who feel like their personal boundaries get shifted a lot, and like needs that they have get lost in the relationship. So I think that is interesting that you mentioned the older you get, the more independent you feel. And so when you do get in a relationship and you are looking for a partner to go through life with, how do you merge those things? Which isn't a whole nother question, but interesting to think about.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that that's something that I feel like people get better with over time, you know, and you see these couples that have been together for a long time who very much kind of understand how they work together and how their roles fit with each other. But I do think that that first stage of being in a relationship or being married is going to be kind of the hardest part, is working out how that partnership works. And I think it's tricky because it's different for every couple, right? So I think that that'll be the most challenging part.
Yeah, agreed. Please join us for part 2 of this episode.